सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति। So we are on the 23rd verse, which we will chant now. Shri Bhagavanuvāca.
Shri Bhagavanuvāca.
Nainam chindanti shastrāni.
Nainam chindanti shastrāni.
Nainam dahati pavakaha.
Nainam dahati pavakaha.
Na chainam kledayantyāpaha.
Na chainam kledayantyāpaha.
Na shoshayati marutaha.
Na shoshayati marutaha.
Okay, so as usual, we'll first take the breakup of the words and the anvaya. So nainam is to be broken as na enam. So na enam chindanti shastrani. So be careful here. It is shastrani, not shastrani. Shastram is scripture. Shastra is a weapon. So na enam chindanti shastrani. Na enam dahati pavakaha. Chainam is broken into cha plus enam. So nainam is na plus enam. Chainam is cha plus enam. So na cha enam kledayanti. So that word that breaks into kledayanti plus apaha. So kledayantyapo or kledayantyapaha is broken into kledayanti plus apaha. Na shoshayati marutaha. Okay. Now look at the anvaya. Shastrani enam na chindanti. So weapons na chindanti, do not cut. Chindanti essentially is cut into two pieces or multiple pieces. So shastrani is plural, weapons. Na chindanti, do not cut enam. So enam here refers to what? What does
Atman.
Atma, right? So enam has to be replaced mentally by atmanam. So shastrani atmanam na chinnanti. Weapons cannot cut this enam, this atma. That is one part of the anvaya. The other part is pavakaha enam na dahati. So similarly, you replace enam with atmanam. Pavakaha atmanam na dahati. Pavaka is fire. Dahati means to burn. So the fire pavakaha na dahati does not burn enam atmanam. Second part, so that we have completed the first line now. 2 quarters have been completed. Then na chainam kledayantyapaha. So here you have to break it up very carefully. Na cha enam kledayanti apaha. Okay, that quarter is broken like that. Na cha enam kledayanti apaha. So, and you can rearrange that. Apaha enam na kledayanti. The cha is simply and. You can put it anywhere in the sentence, but can put it in the front also because it's connecting it to the previous verse. So cha and apaha enam atmanam na kledayanti. Apaha is what? Water. Kledayanti means to wet, or in this context, to drown. So apaha na kledayanti enam atmanam. Water cannot drown. So it's again in the sense of killing by drowning, destroying by drowning. Water cannot drown this atma. And the last quarter is marutaha na shoshayati. You have to supply. Marutaha enam atmanam na shoshayati. Marutaha is the wind. Shoshayati, shoshanam is to dry. So wind does not dry this atma. So finally, weapons do not cut the atma. Fire does not burn the atma. Water cannot wet or drown the atma. The wind cannot dry the atma. So enam, literally meaning of enam is this one. So which one? This one which is resident in the body, right? You have to connect it to all the earlier verses. So Dehi is the meaning of enam. Dehi is that atma which is intimately associated with the body. And the sense of all these statements is what? Atma does not get destroyed by anything. Whereas the body is affected by everything in the creation. And if you extract the meaning, what is Krishna saying? That out of the Pancha Mahabhutani, 4 Mahabhutani can affect the body. Not only the body, can affect everything in creation. Which Mahabhutani cannot affect? Akasha. Space cannot affect anything. But the other 4 elements, Pancha Mahabhutani or Mahabhutani, can affect the body. So here, the traditional meaning, when you say Prithvi, so we are talking not only about just the Bhumi, not only about just the earth, but made out of whatever is provided by the earth. So weapons like sword, knife, what is extracted from the earth, all metal ores which I have extracted from the earth. So Prithvi means does not mean just the earth, just the Bhumi, but means anything which is extracted from Bhumi also, like all metal ores. And because of that, weapons are made out of these metals. So sword, knife, etc. Everything is covered under the word Prithvi. So they cannot cut the body, right? Because weapons like sword, knife, etc., which are extracted from the metal present in the earth and therefore considered under Prithvi, they cannot cut the body. Then, similarly, Jalam. The water can drown the body. If you don't know how to swim and you fall into the water, you can drown. So water is taken as an agent which can destroy the body. That water cannot destroy the Atma. Similarly, Agni can burn the body to death, and that Agni cannot destroy the Atma. Wind has to be understood as dehydration. Like if there is too much wind and you don't have enough water, you get dehydrated. So therefore, wind can dry the body and cause dehydration and therefore destroy the body. That also cannot affect the Atma. So all these 4 elements can affect the body, but none of them can affect the Atma. Therefore, Shastrani enam na chindanti. Weapons cannot destroy this Atma. Now, if you remember the chapter 1, there were 2 words we used for weapons. What were they?
Astra and Shastra.
Astra and Shastra. What is the difference between Astra and Shastra?
One of them is held in the hand, the other is thrown away.
Thrown out.
So which one is which?
Astra is thrown out.
Astra can be
Thrown
leave,
out.
can
Leave
leave the
the body.
hand, can leave the hand. Shastra is held in the hand. Okay, so you'll find that I'll try to connect each word as and when it comes, so that we remember what all we have learned. Okay, now the question is, Shastra, no Shastra, not Shastra, Shastra. Okay, Shastra says that Shastrani enam na chindanti. Weapons do not cut this Atma. Why cannot they cut? Why cannot Atma be cut? So if you look at Shankara Bhashyam, he says, he uses a particular word, nir avayava. Okay, avayava is a word which means assembly, consisting of parts. Anything which consists of parts is called assembly. Like a car is assembly, right? Because, and that's why we say the car comes out of the assembly line. What happens in the assembly line? Many parts are put together. The body is put, the engine is put, the seats are put, the wheels are put. Everything is put. Therefore, anything which is put together is called an assembly, avayava. And here, Shankara says that anything which is avayava, which has been put together by putting through various parts, that can be obviously destroyed by separating the parts. So hence, anything which is avayava, an assembly, can be destroyed. How can it be destroyed? Simply by separating the parts. And therefore, if Shastra is saying that Atma is not capable of being cut, Shastra is indicating that Atma is nir-avayava. Atma has no parts at all. It is one integrated whole. And therefore, it cannot be destroyed. Can you think of anything else which is one integrated whole and therefore cannot be destroyed?
Akasha.
Yes, Akasha.
Akasha. Very good. That's the way to do Mananam. That is why Atma is compared to Akasha. Akasha is one integrated whole. It is nir-avayava, having no parts. And therefore, na chindanti. It cannot be taken apart. So only things which have been put together, which is the assembly, can be taken apart. And Atma not being so. So the understanding here is that even space, which is the first Pancha Mahabhutani born from Maya, even that space is nir-avayava, cannot be cut, having no parts. What about Atma? Atma definitely is much superior to that in that particular quality, and therefore it cannot be cut. Okay, that is the meaning. Then the next one is Pavakaha na enam dahati. Fire does not burn the Atma. What do you mean by burn? We have to give a definition, because in Shastram, we try to reduce everything to a defined, quantity. Nothing should be unclear. So what is meant by a burn? So we say, na bhasmi karoti. Can you understand? Na bhasmi karoti means what?
Won't turn to ash.
Cannot be reduced to ashes. So burning means bhasmi karoti, reducing to ashes. Why? Same reason. Nir avayava. There is no part which can be burnt or reduced to ashes. Then apaha enam kledayanti. Water does not drown. Now here, most of us accept this particular explanation, saying that, okay, like the body drowns in water, right? That's how water destroys. But Shankara is not content with that. So he takes a much deeper look. And he says, let me explain how water can destroy. He is now coming back to the definition, his favorite definition of nir avayava. Okay. So he says, take an avayava object. What is an avayava object? An object which has been put together. Say a paper doll. The paper doll has been put together with many pieces, right? The head, legs, all these have been put together. And how have they been put together? Through glue, through paste. They have all been pasted together. When you put that doll in water, what happens? The paste, which is the adhesive, which is the bond between the various parts, that gets weakened or destroyed, and this bond falls apart, and therefore when afterwards you touch the doll, it falls apart. So why this process cannot destroy? Because Atma is not like that. Nir avayava. Okay. So everywhere he has brought this partless part. See, one simple verse, he brings in the concept of being partless. Very interesting, because that is something which we must remember always. We have, as Atma, we have no parts. As body, we have parts. If you claim yourself as the body, you are claiming that, yes, I can be destroyed. If you claim yourself as the Atma, then you are saying that nothing can destroy. So that is the learning, the mananam from this particular verse. I am the Atma, nothing can destroy me. Then the last quarter is Maruttaha na shoshayati. The wind does not destroy or dry up the Atma. So we have to understand why. Why is it said that the wind is powerful, that it can kill? So it is the reverse of the earlier process of Kledayanti. What did we say about Kledayanti? When the doll is put in water, the bonds get wet and therefore they fall apart. Here it is a reverse process. Any bond is slightly liquid in character, right? Any paste is slightly liquid in character. And here he is saying that the wind, through dehydration, it removes all the liquid part of the bond, and therefore the parts fall apart, fall away, and the bonds get destroyed, the parts fall apart. Here also the reason is the same. Wind cannot destroy the Atma because nir avayava. So this one adjective, the one visheshanam, nir avayava, is the reason for all the four statements. Why the weapons, why water, why fire, and why wind cannot destroy the Atma. And a little bit of grammar for those who are interested. Such an adjective, a visheshanam, which is the reason for a statement. What is it called? Does anybody know? It's in Hindi also. An adjective giving the reason for a statement. It replaces all the four statements. So it's called Hetu Garbha Visheshanam. Just for knowledge only, Hetu Garbha Visheshanam. Visheshanam is an adjective. Hetu Garbha means it is the reason for all the four statements. So the body will be affected by four elements, but not the Atma. Remember, this is all just expanding on the earlier verses. No new ideas are being conveyed. We have all said this earlier also. Atma cannot be destroyed. How na enam vetti hantaram, na jayate mriyate va kalachit, veda vinashanam nityam. All these statements, what are they? They are simply saying Atma cannot be destroyed. This is one more verse which says Atma cannot be destroyed. Okay, now I'll unmute you all and we can chant the.
Sorry, can one question be asked now?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So in the previous day, last class, you told that there was a confusion that Atma, or like we are not referring it to the Atma, but it's a Jivatma. So now in today's verse, you said that here basically this enam is also referring to that thing, but again you said Atmanam. Could you please just clarify a little?
Remember here, these words are used interchangeably. The Atma is all here. The Atma is not the all-pervading Atma. It is the Dehi only.
Okay.
Because Dehi is, when I say I will be destroyed, I am talking about myself. And I consist of two parts, the body-mind complex and the Atma as if enclosed in the body. That Atma as if enclosed in the body is called Dehi. It's like the space in the bottle, which is not separate from the outside space, but yet we say the bottle has space. Similarly, Atma, which seems to be enclosed in the body, which is me, that is called Dehi. Dehi literally means Deha mein jo hai, what is resident in the Deham, what is inside the body.
So here Enam is that one, Jivatma, right?
We are all talking about Jivatma only right now.
Okay, so I have one more question. So someone in the group in the end wrote, asked you that, so here the Dehi is Karana Sarira and Sukshma Sarira.
No,
And you said,
no,
yes.
no. Tattva means, if you look at Tattva, what is Dehi? From a Tattva point of view, whenever you get these doubts, go back to Tattva. What is Dehi there?
The Jivatma.
Dehi is, what is Jivatma in terms of the RC-RM concept?
It's the RC of from 1, 2, and 3.
It can be taken as RC 1, 2, 3, or it can be taken as RC 2, 3. I'm excluding this Tulharam also, it can be taken.
Yes.
Right, but it can be taken as both. So the bodies blessed or pervaded by consciousness, that is Jiva or Jivatma. Whenever we say Jiva, it is Jivatma only. And if you are going to distinguish, then you have to say Jivatma and Paramatma.
Okay, so just I'm probably irritating. So I have one further question that now Jiva, if that Karana Sariram and the Sukshma Sariram, they are destroyed or rather absorbed in Pralaya?
No, you're wrong. Karma Shariram does not get destroyed in Pralaya.
No, yes, Sukshma Sarira and Karana, it cannot be identified separately.
Yes.
So when now here, as you said that we are referring, I means moon, for example. So then that is not identifiable there, but we are saying it's not destructed, right? So it's only like cannot be identified in the Pralaya, but it exists.
Karma Shariram is destroyed only on moksha. That you must get very clearly. Karma Shariram cannot be destroyed excepting through moksha.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Once that clarity is there, then the doubts will not arise.
Okay, Acharya, thank you.
Okay, now let us look at verse number 24, which you will to unmute yourself and we can chant. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam, no, sorry. Achedyoyam adahyoyam. Vedhyo shoshya eva cha. Nitya sarvagatasthanu. Achaloyam sanatanaha. Okay, now I'll give you the, as usual, I'll give you the breakups. And this, if you look carefully, because they're all very compound words, complex words. So the first word is Achedo Yamadahyoyam. And you break that up into Achedyaha. Then the Avagraha disappears. Then it becomes Ayam. So Ayam Dahyo. That has to be broken into Ayam plus Adahya. So Achedyaha Ayam, Adahya, then Ayam, then Akledyaha, then Ashoshyaha Evacha. So Achedya Ayam, Adahya Ayam, Akledya, Ashoshya Evacha, Nitya Sarvagataha. Then you break the other word. Sthanuhu Achalaha Ayam Sanatanaha. Sthanuhu Achalaha Ayam Sanatanaha. Okay. So Anvaya will be ayam achedya adahya ayam akledya ashoshya evacha. Ayam achedya. If you want, you can add ayam adahya, ayam akledya, ayam ashoshya evacha. Ayam nityaha, ayam sarvagataha, ayam sthanuhu, ayam achalaha, ayam sanatanaha. Okay. The achedya means cannot be cut. Ayam achedya. This cannot be cut. So this Atma cannot be cut. This is only a repetition of the previous word, previous verse ideas, again in different words. So ayam achedya. This Atma cannot be cut. Ayam adahya. This Atma cannot be burnt. Ayam akledya. This Atma cannot be drowned. Ayam ashoshya. This Atma cannot be dried up. Okay, so the first line of this verse is just a summary of the previous verse. Then Ayam Nityaha. This Atma is eternal. Ayam Sarvagataha. So Sarva plus Gataha, that which goes everywhere, which means all pervading. This Atma is all pervading. Ayam Sthanuhu. This Atma is stable. So Sthanuhu and Achalaha have similar meanings. Achala means not movable. Sthanuhu means stable, also not movable. Ayam Sanatanaha, again eternal. Right? So as I said, the first line is a repetition of the previous loka. And now here he wants to tell us what, because the Atma is Achedya, Adahya, Akledya. This he has said, an Ashoshya. Therefore, if you put those four adjectives together, what will be the nature of the Atma? So that is saying Nitya. The Atma is immortal. You need not work for immortality. You don't have to go and get immortality. Immortality is your very nature, right? And if you examine your, innermost thoughts, you will find that you have some sort of, wish that you should not disappear, that you should be immortal. So that we say is because that is your very nature. And that is why we have this feeling that we should be immortal. The problem is we try to become immortal through all indirect methods. Like what is the usual way? The bodies will die. That we all accept. So we give our names to our children. We give our names to our grandchildren. We take our photographs, hang them all over there. We start some institutions and name it after ourselves. What is the main idea? Once the body dies, I want to live on. That is a very innermost urge. So the mortality of other things, the fact that other things will die is not a problem for me. I am willing to accept. But I am mortal, I am not able to accept. In spite of knowing that this body which I have, the body will die, I am not able to accept that I am mortal. Why are we not able to accept this mortality? Shastra says, because it is not your Swabhava. It is unnatural to you, right? Mortality is not natural to you. You are naturally immortal. And that is why you are not able to accept mortality, right? Had mortality been natural for us, what would be the result? A very simple law. Whatever is natural, I will accept. Whatever is unnatural, I will reject. Everybody rejects mortality. And therefore, nobody accepts mortality. Everybody wants to continue to live. And therefore, the corollary from all this is that mortality is unnatural. And what is natural to me, therefore, is Nitya, immortality. Nitya means Kala aparichinnaha, not bound by Kala, not bound by time. So that's one thing which Krishna says, that you are not bound by time, you are Nitya. Then Sarvagataha. So these are types of limitations we're talking about. One limitation is limitation of time. What is the limitation of time? This body is born, this body dies. So the body exists between two time frames, birth and death, between two events, birth and death. And therefore, it is bound by time. Kala parichannaha. But the Atma is Kala aparichannaha. I am not bound by time. The next adjective is Sarvagataha. All pervading. All pervading means what? I am there everywhere. As Atma, I am there everywhere. So not only am I timeless, I am spaceless also. I am beyond time and space. And therefore, Sthanuhu. Because I am beyond time and space, I am changeless. Therefore, Sthanuhu. Time and space do not cause any change in me. So if you have to understand this, you look at the fact that everything in the creation is changed by what? By time, right? Even your body grows. When you were young, you had a particular very cute body. Now it is different body, right? So this has changed through time only. The color of the skin changes. Color of the hair changes. Color of the hair itself changes. Hair itself disappears and you become bald. All this is caused by what? By time only. So if I am Nityaha, then that time cannot bring any change in me. And because of the fact that time cannot affect me, I am Sthanuhu. Sthanuhu means ever the same. So if those of you who are familiar with the chanting of Shiva Stotram and all that, you will know that one of the names of Lord Shiva is Sthanuhu. Lord Shiva is also called Sthanuhu. And Sthanuhu is defined as what? Sarvataha Tishtati, which is there everywhere and therefore changeless. He gives one more adjective, Achalam. Here again you have to derive. It is not just to understand. You have to derive. I am not bound by time and therefore I am changeless. Since I am not bound by space, I am motionless. Right? I am not bound by time, therefore I am Sthanuhu. I am not bound by space, therefore I am Achalaha. So Sthanuhu is changeless. Achalaha is motionless. A very fine distinction, but we should remember. Why is that important? Because for any movement, that any movement is possible only for a limited entity. An unlimited, infinite entity cannot move from one place to another. Why so? Why can Atma not move?
Already everywhere. So
It's already everywhere. So there is nowhere for it to move to. Right? So as the body, if you claim yourself as the body, you are Anitya, Asthanuhu, Chalaha, all these Visheshanams, all these adjectives will apply to you. But when you claim yourself as the body, as the Atma, you have dropped them all. And therefore, Sanatanaha. Sanatanaha is ever fresh. Eternal, ever fresh. Means what? It is very, very old, but it has not become stale. That's a very special meaning for Sanatana. Extremely old, but still very fresh. It has not gone stale. And that is why Hinduism is called Sanatana Dharma. And if you remember, Hinduism deals with two main topics. Hinduism is actually a name which is not there in the scripture at all. It is given to us by outsiders, the Muslim invaders and the English. Because you used to live near the river Sindhu, right? And they couldn't say Shah, so they said it became Hindu. That is how you are called Hindus, and Hinduism came about. So this Dharma deals with two main aspects. Sanatana Dharma, two main aspects are there. One is dharma itself and one is Brahma. Remember that our dharma has two aspects, dharma and Brahma. And these are what? Purva Veda Bhag, that is the Karma Kanda Bhaga of the Veda. It talks about the rituals, etc. It talks about standards of behavior, all that. That is dharma. The Veda Anta or the Uttara Bhaga, it talks about Brahman. That portion dealing with dharma is called religion. That portion dealing with Brahman is called Jnanam or philosophy. And both these have not changed or will not change. Why? Values are the same. For example, ahimsa. Non-injury is a value in which century? 5,000 years ago, it is a value. Today also it is a value. Ahimsa is a value all throughout time. It will continue to be a value throughout as long as human beings exist. What is the law? How do you arrive at this value? So you first take it as applicable to yourself. What is the truth about ahimsa? I do not want anybody to hurt me. That is the first statement. That is the very basis on which ahimsa is predicated. The basis is I do not want anybody to hurt me. And therefore, as a thinking human being, I should be able to extract a corollary that if I do not want anybody to hurt me, then, I should not, or rather, then nobody else would want to be hurt by me, right? So understanding only the first part, I do not want anybody to hurt me, is only half digesting that value. It's a partly assimilated value. But when from that statement you draw the corollary that therefore nobody else would want to be hurt by me, then that statement is fully assimilated, and that nobody else includes any living being. So ahimsa is the very basis for vegetarianism. That's why we don't want to kill. Okay. Similarly, you can draw another corollary, satyam. Right? Satyam is also one of the values. And therefore, where does it come from? I don't want people to tell me lies. Like if your wife or your husband or your child or your daughter or your friend or your neighbor tells you a lie, you feel slightly hurt, right? So you want everybody to tell you the truth. So that's the first statement. I want people to tell me the truth. What is the corollary from there? That I should tell the truth to everybody. Nobody will want me to lie to them. And therefore satyam. So these kind of extraction of the values come from all related to myself. This is all dharma, which is called Sanatana Dharma. Okay. So that doesn't change. Your great grandfather 10,000 years ago did not want to be hurt. You also don't want to be hurt. So that value has, ahimsa value has remained. Satyam value has remained. Okay, so from there you can extract why the Purva Bhaga, why the Karma Kanda is called Sanatana. Why? Because nothing has changed, nothing will ever change. Okay, what about Veda Anta? Now during, Shankaracharya's time, was Brahman big or now it has become small? Or the way around. Was it small during Shankaracharya's time? Had it grown during the last 5,000 years? No. So Brahman also does not change. Therefore, Veda part, the Karma Kanda part, Vedanta part, also does not change. Karma Kanda does not change. Jnana Kanda does not change. Dharma does not change. Brahman does not change. Both parts are Sanatana. And therefore, Hinduism is called Sanatana Dharma. That which teaches you those changeless values of life. This is called Sanatana Dharma. Ever fresh, ever valid. The same Bhagavad Gita was studied 5,000 years ago. The same Bhagavad Gita is studying today also. Whereas if you look at sciences like physics, chemistry, what your grandparents studied were very different. What you studied, you may not be able to teach your children because physics has changed, chemistry has changed. There have been new discoveries, theories have been revised, and therefore material sciences change. Medicine, there have been so many advances. Medicine changes, physics changes, biology changes, astronomy changes. But what does not change? Dharma does not change. Neither the Karma Kanda, Dharma part, nor the Brahma, the Jnana Kanda cannot change. And therefore, 20 centuries ago, Veda was valid, both the parts. 20 centuries from today also, Veda will be valid. And therefore, Veda is called Sanatanaha. Okay, I'll stop here for a minute in case you want any questions.
Yes, Raviji.
Yes, please.
Om Namah Shivaya.
I'm not sure.
I wanted to ask in Vedant, this Karma Kanda, can you please highlight how these are helping to know the Atman, or what is the significance?
See, Karma Kanda has a very simple, what they call, objective. Anybody knows?
Chitta Shuddhi.
Chitta Shuddhi. Simple. All your negative aspects, all your, so we say there are, impurities in your mind, strong emotions, likes and dislikes. All these are taken care of through karma. The meditation part, which is again Karma Kanda, Upasana part, that takes care of the shifting nature of your mind. And therefore, without that, without having a mind which is relatively free of disturbances, which is Chitta Shuddhi, and which is able to focus on the teaching will have no benefit for you.
Thank you. So
Beg your pardon?
what are the main parts, main things in Karma Kanda?
So
said?
you have to wait. We will come to chapter 3. We'll be talking all about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I want to ask, like, when we say Sanatan Dharma is something which is changeless, like the teachings are changeless, ancient, but still valid today. And we say, like, that is what Hinduism is. So I'm assuming, like, if we take, say, Christianity, like if we take the Bible, even that is something which is valid even today. Like, I'm assuming, I've not read it, but I'm sure it's still valid today. So why don't we call Christianity as Sanatan Dharma?
Well, I'm sure they refer to the eternal teaching. I'm sure that the very basis is different. Okay, like they talk about a savior, they have a Lord, we don't have one. So that is why they call Abrahamic religions.
What I'm trying to ask is that Sanatan Dharma is not about having one Lord or anything. It is basically anything which is ancient but changeless.
Yeah, but they don't have Sanskrit, no. They won't. They. I'm sure you ask any Christian, he'll tell you it is the Bible has been there for so many years. It'll be there together. That's hardly a debatable point. It is a point of view. You can call it Sanatana Dharma. There's no difference, but the teachings are completely different.
Yeah, teachings are completely different, but changeless. The nature is changeless for
No,
both.
they have certain. If you look at, for example, the Christianity, maybe a couple of thousand years ago, they believed in rebirth. Now they don't.
Oh, okay.
Has it not changed?
Okay.
Yeah, because there are some Pope congregation got together somewhere and said that okay, from now on we will not believe in we will remove the word rebirth because it threatened them.
Oh, okay.
So our thing is we hold this as sacred. We have no interpretations which are different from what the scripture itself says.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, now we look at the next verse, which is verse number
Acharya,
25.
one quick question.
Can
You
we just
had
finish
used
this
the
verse?
word.
We'll finish
Yes.
the 25th
Okay.
verse, then I'll open for
Fine.
questions. Okay.
Fine. So, okay.
So let's just chant this last verse. So please unmute yourself. Avyakto yamachintyoyam
अव्यक्तोऽयमचिन्त्योऽयम्
अविकार्योऽयम उच्यते
विकार्योऽयमुच्यते
तस्मात् एवं विदित्वैनं
तस्मादेव विदित्वैनं
नानुशोचितुम् अर्हसि.
नानुशोचितुमर्हसि.
Okay, I'm just muting you all while I finish this. Okay, so avyakta ayam, achintya ayam, avikarya ayam uchyate. Word breakups of the first line. Ayam avyaktaha, ayam achintyaha, ayam avikaryaha uchyate. Tasmat evam viditva enam, tasmat evam viditva enam na anushochitum arhasi. Na anushochitum arhasi. This is the breakup. And if you look at the words, sentences, anvaya, we can reword it. I am, you have to add here. I am Atma. You can add in your brackets. I am Atma. I am Dehi. Avyaktaha uchyate. Avyakta means which cannot be seen by the sense organs. So the technical term is what for Avyakta?
Indriya
Agocharam.
Indriya agocharam, which cannot be grasped by the sense objects. So, I am avyakta uchyate. This Atma cannot be seen or grasped by any sense organ. Then I am achintya uchyate. Achintya means cannot be thought about. It's not a subject which you can think about. I am achintya uchyate. This cannot be thought about. I am avikarya uchyate. So vikara is change. Avikara means not subject to change. So this Atma cannot be subject to change. So you know, again, some of the Visheshanam, some of the adjectives are being repeated here in different words. Some of the ideas are being presented again. So these three. Then the fourth part is tasmat. Therefore, enam viditva. Having, enam is Atma, viditva means known. Evam means in this manner in which Krishna is teaching. So tasmat enam evam viditva. Therefore, having known this Atma in accordance with this teaching, what is in accordance with this teaching? All the Visheshanam, all the adjectives talked about earlier, which is what avinasham, nityam, ajam, avyayam, then na chindanti, na shastrani, na dahati, all these you have to put together. This is what is meant by evam, in this manner in which Krishna is teaching. Tasmat enam atma viditva. Having known the Atma in the manner in which Krishna is teaching, tvam na arhasi anushochitum. You should not grieve. Tvam, you, na arhasi, need not, anushochitum, should not grieve. So the last sentence is very important. It says that having known the Atma in this manner, you should not grieve. Okay, so in this verse, with this verse, actually, the Atma discussion is being wound up. And therefore, the main ideas here are the repetition of what we have seen in the previous month slokas. So, Avyakta is, of course, Indriya Agochara. Right? Then, what about Atma? Atma cannot be seen by any of the 5 sense organs. So I'm not going into that. I'll just give you the names again. Ashabdam, Asparsham, Arupam, Arasam, Agandham. Atma is free from Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Why? Because these 5 properties, they belong to Pancha Mahabhutani only. Right? If you remember Tattva Bodha, how do they belong? Akasha has got Shabda, Vayu has got Shabda and Sparsha, Agni has got Shabda, Sparsha and Rupa, Jalam has got Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa and Rasa, Prithvi has got all the 5. So matter alone has all these properties, and Anatma alone has all these properties. And Atma being free from these properties, it is avyaktaha. Okay. So Atma is not an object of perception by any of the pramanams. And we talked about the pramanams. What are they? Pratyaksha, Anumana, Upamana, Arthapatti, Anupalabdhihi, and Shabda. We talked in great detail, so I'm not again discussing that. Basically, what he's saying is Pratyaksha Pramanam is being ruled out. When you say Atma cannot be, grasped by the sense organs, what have you ruled out? Pratyaksha. So now there can be a question. You are saying Krishna says that Pratyaksha is ruled out. Therefore, is it an object of Anumanam? Can it be inferred? That could be a, that could be a question, valid question. That is how Mananam takes place. You are saying that, hey Krishna, you are saying that it is Indriya Agocharam, which means what? Cannot be grasped by Pratyaksham, any of the sense organs. Then, is it not possible to infer that? So Krishna rules it out by saying Achintyam. If you cannot perceive, you cannot conceive. Right? If you cannot see something, you cannot think about it. If you can not, when I say see, I mean perceive, grasp through any of the 5 sense organs. What cannot be grasped by any of the sense organs, I cannot think about. So Atma is therefore not an object of your thought. Which is why, where did we see this? Not an object of thought. What is the word for this being not an object?
Aprameya.
Aprameya. Atma is aprameyam. Where is the question of inference at all? So remember that Anumanam can be done only on the basis of Pratyaksham. Only if you perceive, then only inference can be done. So there is a very famous, Sanskrit law. Yatra yatra dhumaha, tatra tatra agni. Literally, wherever there is smoke, there will be agni. What is the logic for this statement? Somewhere you have seen that smoke, that agni is always accompanied by smoke. Fire is always accompanied by smoke. Somewhere you have seen. And therefore, now when the fire is not perceptually available, but you see the smoke, you can infer that fire is there. Okay. But here, whatever is not perceptually available, you cannot think about. And therefore, whatever you think of is not Atma. You get it? Why whatever you think of is not Atma? Because Atma is the very thinker. Atma is you. So Atma is never a thought. It is always the thinker. So it is never an object, aprameyam. It is always the subject. And therefore, achintyaha. It cannot be thought about. Then avikarya. So avikara means free from shadvikara. So Krishna does not explain why Atma is avikara. Why it cannot be subject to change. But Shankara brings in the same example. He says nir avayava. Because of the lack of parts, they cannot change. We have seen all these ideas before, right? Avyakta and achintya was previously called aprameya. For aprameya means avyaktam plus achintya. And therefore now Krishna concludes. He says, Arjuna, having known all these facts, what are the facts? You are Atma, I am Atma, Bhishma is Atma, Drona is Atma. You cannot kill as Atma. As Atma, you cannot do any action because you're all pervading. Bhishma cannot be killed because as Atma, he is all pervading. Drona cannot be killed by Atma because as Atma, he is all pervading. And therefore, since you are not going to do any action, you are not going to get any punyam or any papam, because karma phalam comes out of only karma. And therefore, do not grieve. Why, Arjuna, are you crying? That is what he's saying. Therefore, tasma evam viditva. Having known the Atma in this manner, na arhasi shochitum. You should not grieve over any person. It's a very, very potent statement. Okay. Nobody deserves grief in your life. So normally, when you say this, how is that possible? Will I not be insensitive if I don't grieve? But Krishna is saying, shochitum na arhasi. You should not grieve over any person. Whatever happens to a person in your life, you should not grieve. Because that person is not the body. That person is the Atma. Whatever is happening only to the body. It is not happening to the Atma. And secondly, this does not mean that you are insensitive. If somebody has fallen on the road, it doesn't mean you say that only the body has fallen, therefore let me continue with my walk. You don't do that. If you can help someone, it is wonderful. But Krishna is saying, do that. If you can help, help. But by grieving, you are not changing any fact. The mortal body is not going to come back if you cry. And the immortal Atma is not going to die. These two facts cannot be changed. So look at the facts as they are. Do whatever is to be done. But do not grieve, because that does not change the situation at all. You are helping nobody by grieving. So, hey Arjuna, why are you sitting and crying? And this has been said earlier, where in the same chapter, which verse? This summary, this entire, these 25 verses is a summary of what? Of which particular line in which verse?
Nasato vidyate bhavaha.
No.
Panditaha na shochanti.
Yeah, katasuna katasumscha na anushochan pandita. Verse number 11. Okay, second line of verse number 11. This is entire thing is a summary of, is an expansion on that. See the beauty of the scripture. It's introduced the Pratignya Vakyam. Pratignya Vakyam is a Vakyam which has to be defended. The Pratignya Vakyam was this one, which we said. Katasuna katashomscha na anushochanti panditaha. Having done that, the rest of the verses, 15, 16 verses, he has spent on defending that. So essentially he is saying wise people never grieve. If you understand this wise, you are also wise. So what kind of grief will Arjuna face? He will have regrets. I have killed these people. So he says grief is foolishness, grief is ignorance, grief is delusion. Why so many times the whole thing has been repeated? Is it not punarukti dosha? No, because some concepts have to be repeated in very many different words for it to take, what they call root in our mind. So Shankara says in Vedantic teachings, repetition is not a dosha, it's not a defect, because some students will understand the very first time. Some students will understand after 20 times. And some students will, having received it, will forget it the moment they step out of the class. So it is not enough to intellectually understand also. This must be assimilated. That intellectual knowledge has to be driven into your subconscious mind. Why that? Because only when the knowledge is available in my subconscious mind, that is without conscious thought, then only that knowledge will help me in my daily transactions. I can give an example. For example, learning to drive. Initially, you are focused, when you're learning to drive, you are focused on every action, on the road, on changing the gear, on putting the wipers, putting the lights, people in front of you, left, right, front, everywhere. But later on, after a couple of years of driving experience, you will find that you have left your origin and reached somewhere else without conscious thought. Sometimes you'll be surprised, oh, I've reached. The subconscious mind had taken over the driving. And you were, in your conscious mind, you were dreaming about something else. So this kind of subconscious taking over of this particular thought, this is assimilation. Okay, for example, there is Mahavakyam, Tattvamasi. It's a very famous Mahavakyam. It's from the Chandogya Upanishad. Chandogya Upanishad repeats this Vakyam 9 times in that one chapter. Why? Shankara says it's a very difficult knowledge to really assimilate. It is easy to understand that Brahman is infinite and all-pervading. But the aim of Atmajnanam is not that intellectual understanding that Brahman is infinite and pervading. What is the aim of Atmajnanam? What is the aim of Shruti? It is to remove samsara. So the understanding that Brahman exists, Brahman asti, that is the understanding, Brahman exists. The movement from Brahman exists, that is from Brahman asti to Brahma asmi. The movement that there is Brahman is one understanding. The assimilation is I am Brahman. That is very difficult. And that is why Krishna is repeating again and again and again. So with this 25th verse, the main Atmajnanam teaching is now over. So with this, we'll stop for today in case you have any questions.
Ravi ji.
Yeah.
We said that Atma is achintyam.
Hmm.
Also very clearly explained that it has to be assimilated, not it cannot be thought. But assimilation, just to clarify more, like assimilation is repeating that thought and with belief and
No. Today, for example, if somebody calls you and says, "Who are you?" in the middle of the night, what will you say?
whatever is the body and name.
Yeah. But when that question is asked, and when your first thought is, I am the Atma. But for transactional purposes, you have to recall, okay, I am this body which is called so and so. That is assimilation. When it becomes as natural for you to think that you are Atma as it is today for you to think that you are a human being. That is the assimilation. When that assimilation happens, then all your responses occur from that subconscious position. Remember that our reactions are not from the conscious mind. Reactions are always unconscious mind. And therefore, Aham Brahmasmi has to be driven from the conscious mind to the subconscious mind. That is called assimilation.
So means we cannot think about it, but with Shastras and these understandings continuously and putting it into daily life, once it goes into subconscious mind, that is assimilation.
That is assimilation.
And you were saying about this Pope and all, they don't believe in reincarnation. But of course, there are so many things in our Shastras, but even discovery and all nowadays, everybody, there are so many cases people believe. And
yeah,
so,
Hinduism is a very popular everywhere now. They have borrowed ideas from everywhere. But for us, reincarnation is mithya. If you ultimately look at the Shastram is not bothered about reincarnation. This is of course too early to tell you all, but whenever we talk about the body, the understanding should be the body is mithya. As long as the body is real for you, you have a problem in life.
Mithya is like changeable or not the real form.
No. Have you done Tattvabodha?
Doing it.
Mithya is something which is dependent on somebody else, something else. Like the pot, it is dependent upon what? The clay.
Yes.
There is no pot apart from the clay, but yet you call it pot. So that is mithya.
And one question was that Atma is unchangeable, and so, but because from the Atma, this whole universe or everything in this body is born.
Yeah, so this you should be clear about. When you say Atma, normally use it with reference to an individual. That same entity, when you are saying in terms of universe, you call it Brahman. So that usage of terms, be clear about. When you say Atma, usually it is taken as individual. And when you say Brahman, the context is the world. It's only a change of context. It's like you are son for your mother and you are father for your child. Person is the same. The entity is the same. Brahman and Atman are different names depending upon the context.
So Brahman is unchangeable.
Yeah.
With Brahman, this all universe and all the tattvas are born, which are changeable.
Yes.
So this is something, if a human gives birth, it gives birth to a human. So of course it's unthinkable for us, but how the changeable things are born from the unchangeable.
That all this is what is called Maya. Maya means that which cannot be described.
This which cannot be
Described.
described.
May I ask a question, Acharya?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So for somebody who is a relative beginner on the spiritual path, to have what is in the conscious mind get assimilated into the subconscious, is Mananam the only path?
Maranam happens, see there are three. Shravanam is the first thing. Okay. The Mananam is there in every class. Because whatever idea you have heard, whatever doubts you have, they have to be resolved. That is why Mananam is there. So Shravanam and Mananam go together. So in traditionally actually, once Shravanam is completed, then only Mananam comes. So once the Acharya finishes, then Mananam comes. So because without, sometimes what happens is you got a doubt. But what the Acharya is saying next might take care of the doubt. So normally, once a class is over, then the Mananam is complete. The Mananam process starts. That is why we keep a week between two classes. If you have any doubts about this, and maybe not immediately, but after, when you listen again to this particular class, which is why we give the recordings, you might have doubts. Those doubts should be brought up in the group. That is why the group is there. It's a Mananam group basically.
Right. Thank you, Acharya.
Acharya ji, quick question. You
Yes.
had used a word called Kala Parichunna. Can I just have that word clear?
Parichinna means which is limited by. Parichinna.
So it is time. Right.
Kala
And
Parichinna
Acharya
means
ji,
limited by time.
right. And Acharya ji, is there any glossary of all these words which we use, which
No,
or
I
making a
wouldn't
basic-
recommend that because every word in the Shastra is highly contextual.
Correct.
Its meaning has to be derived in terms of the context. And you'll find that when the context changes,
Right.
the same word will have different meaning. So don't have a
Right.
glossary.
Okay.
Don't
Like
have the mistake
Veda
of...
and
No, don't, because you'll
Right.
find that this is what the Angrez log do, they look at the Sanskrit dictionary
right.
and they come at some
Right.
very stupid interpretations.
Correct.
There is one
So,
lady
thank
called
you.
Wendy Donginger. I don't know if you've heard of her. Wendy Donginger. Have you ever heard of her?
I've heard her name.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there is a word called Aja. Okay. What does Aja mean in Sanskrit?
Goat.
Goat. What does Aja mean in Shastram?
Amar,
Ajo Nitya. What does it mean?
eternal.
Aja means unborn. Okay.
Ajanma.
Aja, coming from Janama. Aja means unborn.
Yeah.
So Shastra is referred to as unborn, and Wendy G refers to it as the goat.
Oh,
Because it's literal English translation.
right.
Therefore, you should have very contextual understanding of Shastra.
So, sir, this
Acharya.
Parichanna is in reference to the term Pariched.
Yeah,
Parichedya, which you...
Parichedya, Parichedakas, all that we discussed earlier. Parichedakas, Parichedyas, Parichedyam. See, that is why we do all these discussions, which may seem out of context, but ultimately it helps to cement our understanding.
Thank you.
Om Acharya ji.
Yes, please.
Acharya ji, when you said that Krishna is saying that everyone and everything is Atma, and when you are killing, you are because Atma cannot be killed, you are not performing any karma, and therefore you don't get any karma phalam. So, but Arjuna is following his dharma in in killing the people who are there in the war against him. So,
Yeah.
is following the dharma not a part of doing a karma?
See, if you remember the initial discussions, I said that Krishna is presenting his arguments in 3 levels. Do you remember what 3 levels were?
Yeah, the Paramarthika, the Pratibhasika, and the
No.
Harika. Sorry.
Laukika.
Yes, one is the Dharmika, one is the spiritual level. The second one is what?
The Paramarthika.
Spiritual, ethical, and worldly level.
Exactly. So there is a spiritual, ethical, and worldly. Don't confuse with Paramarthika and Pratibhasika. Okay, those are levels of reality. So currently, the discussion on the Atma is over, which is the discussion on spiritual level. Then Krishna will present the same arguments from the ethical level and again from the worldly level, Laukika level. 3 sets of arguments are being presented. So when you see all the 3 sets, then that question gets answered.
Okay. Thank you, Acharya.
Okay, so with this, I'll stop for today. Thank you so much for your patience. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you.
Thank you so much.